So cool, brother. It's awesome to have you on.
No, I've watched your stuff a lot. I appreciate you having me. I've actually kind of like been jealous. Like, damn, I kind of want to go on that sometime. So I was stoked when I got that group chat text.
Dude, shout out to Sam Herring, one of the coolest
best.
dudes in the wrestling world.
He's the best.
Man, I got to tell you, as much as I want to talk about the wrestling, and we will get to that, the jumping that you do is absolutely insane. And my little intro to it is, on a side gig, I produce a podcast for Spartan, the obstacle course racing company.
Oh,
and
wow.
They just had this guy on. You ever heard of Super Frenchie, Mateo Girard?
That sounds very familiar.
So he does ski base jumping.
Oh, yeah. He was on Rogan.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
He ski jumps like the Alps and shit, but it's like base jumping with skis on.
Yeah.
And so that was my first introduction to it. I watched his documentary, went down the rabbit hole. Then I'm watching you. I thought you just did the skydiving. What is the difference in skill level between the skydiving, the wingsuit, and the base jumping?
Okay. So like a lot of people will see someone base jump or wingsuit or even ski base, and they'll say, oh, I want to do that one day. Right. And that would be the equivalent of a 17-year-old high school kid who's never wrestled looking at Jordan Burroughs' double leg and saying, oh, I want to hit that one day. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. Like the amount of time it takes to get into that. A lot of people think, oh, it's just falling, right? Like you're just falling. So much more than that. Right. So for skydiving, you know, obviously it's very weather dependent. That's not skill related at all, but how you manage the different weather variables does have skill. You know, certain winds, you can land downwind, land into the wind, crosswind landing, stuff like that. Stuff comes off of the trees, off of different kinds of structures, right? And gives you turbulence. So in skydiving, it's a big open field and there's an arrow on the ground. So when we're in free fall, you know, we're, 10,000 feet up, I see an arrow and I see that it says, okay, the wind is blowing this way, which means I'm landing into the wind to slow myself down. It's a huge field. There's nothing to worry about, right? Now, in base jumping, the skill for the landing, for the canopy flying, comes into all the different variables that we deal with, right? We're not 10,000 feet up anymore. Now we're 300 feet up off the ground. And not only are you not jumping out of a plane, but the difference is you're exiting a fixed structure. So the fixed structure, the object is a building or an antenna or whatnot. You don't have any wind blowing up at you yet. Like if I were to stick my hand out of a window, a moving car, that's what skydiving feels like, right? It just feels like not falling through it, but more pushing back at you. That's why wind tunnels and stuff like that, you see them all the time, like the indoor skydiving. So in base jumping, you're not going fast enough yet to feel that wind resistance. So it's almost like no gravity for a second. Whatever direction you start to rotate, right? You'll stay like that, like for a few seconds. You'll like see those people trying to swim in the air, right? Yeah. For a few seconds. And it's very scary because you have three pull priorities. You have to pull when stable, pull at altitude, and by all means, pull your parachute, right? So pull when stable, right? If I try to do an aerial and I have a video of me effing this up, I started to flip and I was super upside down by the time altitude came, right? So I wasn't stable. Now, if I were to pitch my parachute upside down, right, that can get wrapped around my body, wrapped around an arm, and obviously it doesn't pull out because it's caught. It's called a snag hazard. A GoPro is a big snag hazard. That's what we call that, right? So that happens, right? In skydiving, I have 10,000 feet to correct that. In base jumping, I have maybe 2 seconds. You know what I mean? Like that's how fast it is, right? The second thing with skydiving is your heading performance. If I open off heading, so I'm facing this way, I pitch, and then boom, a 180 happens for whatever reason, bad pack job, wind gust, whatever, right? Just stuff, body position that could do it. There's nothing really to worry about because it's a big freaking sky, right? But all of a sudden, if I have a 180 off an object, that's a bad day. That's a really bad day. That's not a fun day. So that actually happened to me once in Ithaca, New York.
Is that the one where you hurt your ankle?
Yeah.
I watched that one. That's so what?
That was a bad day too.
So I encourage people to watch this video, but you jump off, and so I didn't know if the wind blew you back in or if you did a 180 and like on.
So it was my fault, right? There's two steering toggles on your left and your right riser. The riser is connecting you to your parachute. And my right toggle, I stowed wrong, just like botched it. So when I open, the jolt of the opening pops one steering toggle off and one is still stowed right here. So I have tension on this one and nothing on this side. Boom, right away. As I open, I turn. And I just didn't have enough time to correct it. And I tried to basically like teep the mountain. It didn't work too well.
It looks like you would just kind of like maybe be able to run off it or bounce off it, but the force must be tremendous.
I mean, you're going like 40 miles an hour, to be honest. So, probably a little less, maybe 30, but I mean, it's tough. It's tough.
What's the what's the lowest, gnarliest jump you've ever done?
Did you ever see on Barstool? I shouldn't be saying this because this is not supposed to be me. Disclaimer: if you work for Harvard, stop listening right now. Cut the mic. Did you see on Barstool about a year ago, a guy hit a building? There was like a viral video.
No, the only one on Barstool I've seen you was with
so that one, right?
Catch fall, yeah.
So about a year ago, maybe some of the listeners will remember this. There was a base jump and a guy hits a building. And what was viral about it was the guy who was filming. It was just a regular guy. He was like, "Oh my God, we got to help him." And then he like zooms in. So instead of helping, he like zooms in, right? So I was actually on that load. Now that was a scary load because it was only about 170 feet. It was downtown Cleveland. And the winds, like we have different markers that we use. Like when we're up top, it could be only 5 mile an hour winds. But if they're going the wrong direction and whatnot, obviously it's no good. So these flags would like be straight, right? Just like this. When we're on top, we would look across the street. We'd see these flags for like a couple seconds and then they would fall. So we're like, oh, let's just hunt for a nice little lull and we'll go, right? We were like, oh, just idiots. Now, the scary part about that one is it was almost like, hey, we fooled security. We got through the fire escape. We're on top of the building. We're already up here. We might as well, which is never a good, that's never a good thing to think, right? Like I wasn't like, ooh, I'm excited. It was like, well, I'm here. All right. Like I might as well. Dude. If your friends jump off a building, shouldn't you? Like that's.
So when you say you were on that load, were you the one who's in the video?
No.
Okay.
So no, there's a guy, I land good. And there's a guy, he jumps and all he had was maybe like a 45-degree off heading, right? That's it. 45-degree off heading. Now, because he had an off heading, he took his two toggles. They were down here. He brought them back up, which is in his deep brake settings, right? And then he pulls them back down, which actually surges his canopy, kind of like the opposite of a flare. I don't know if you know how helicopters land or planes, they flare their vehicle, okay, right? So it does the opposite, right? It surges it downwards, which generates a lot of speed, and he just didn't have enough time to turn, and he kind of hit a building. Was
he okay?
He was okay. Yeah, he was good, but that wasn't a good day.
So was 170 feet enough to feel like the adrenaline rush of a fall, like you're free falling?
So yeah, so like a lot of times people think like, oh, the free fall must be the best part, right? It is like skydiving. Obviously, a good free fall is great. Some base jumps you want like a nice delay is what we call it. But to be honest, like the exit is what a lot of base jumpers kind of like. So have you ever heard of I think it's called the uncertainty principle, like Heisenberg's uncertainty principle or something like that? I always use it. Yeah. Okay. I always use it as like a metaphor, right? These Harvard kids, they're always teaching me these terms and stuff. So I'm sorry I'm rambling, but
bro, like, the fact that you're a Harvard coach, in addition to all this, is just fantastic.
No, it's an oxymoron. It took me like 8 years to graduate Ohio State. It's not right. But anyway, people are always like I was with Dylan one time, and this chick comes up to us and like she was flirting with us, and she's like, "Oh, where'd you go to school?" And Dylan's like, "Oh, I went to Cornell." And she's like, "Oh, what about you?" And I'm like, "I'm a Harvard man myself." He was so mad at me. It was so
Jesus. Funny. So yeah, but he's a Ivy League man as well. Wow.
Yeah, he's a real Ivy Leaguer. He
yeah.
he earned the right to say I went to the Ivy League.
The story about you not getting the Maryland job because of the college degree is, to me, one of the most fantastic turnarounds.
That's like something I use a lot when I talk. I'm shocked. I'm actually really happy you heard that.
The pothole moments.
Yeah, the pothole. Wow. Did your homework. So
and our ADD is just going to run wild on this because we were just talking about base jumping downtown Cleveland 2 seconds ago. But no, so yeah, keep going.
So I'm tight with Carrie. Recruited me a little bit in college before I went to Ohio State. And then obviously Jimmy Sheptock was there. And when I was interviewing for Maryland, I talked to Jimmy quite a bit. Long story short, I had 6 credits left at Ohio State, and I just kept putting them off because I finished my senior year and I had 6 left. I was going to take it over the summer, but I decided, you know what? I'm going to do camps so much this summer. I'll just take it online in the fall. Right. And you know how life happens. Just one thing leads to another. Hey, I'll take it in the spring. Hey, I'll do it. Really, irresponsibly just kept pushing it off. Then all of a sudden I go to Rutgers. I'm training at Rutgers. Oh, you know what? I'll take it after this cycle. Right. And it just kept pushing off. And then Carrie's like, hey man, we can't hire you, without these 6 credits done. Like, it's 2 classes. What are you doing? Right. And I was like bummed. It was a big L for me at the time because it was the Big Ten. I really wanted to coach there, But
so
it was
did you think you had it in the bag, like it was a done deal, and then you got the news?
I thought as long as I was finishing online, it wouldn't be the end of the world if I was the assistant coach there. I wasn't sure because I had already coached at Kent State while still having those 6 credits due, right? So I thought, oh, you know what? I'll finish it, this semester. It'll take, 2-3 months and I'll be done. And it really was nothing. It was just 2 classes that I just needed to have the credits for. So
right. Yeah, I love that. I love that Tom Ryan brought you back though and put you on the RTC just to
that's like my second dad.
more like Ryan is the best, dude. My God, yeah. He is. Yeah, I mean everyone says that about him, but he's been on the show and I love the guy. So many good stories, and he's had some moments like that too, man. Some really, I guess pothole moments is that should be like your book, maybe. I don't know, man. There's
I love, that's one of my favorite analogies. Bryce actually taught me a word that I didn't know existed. So I always talk about that pothole thing, and the word he taught me was pronoia. Have you ever heard of pronoia?
I've heard you say it on a podcast, but I didn't really get what it meant.
So the opposite of paranoia is pronoia, and basically what it means is anything good or bad that happens to you is conspiring in your favor. So if, obviously I'm driving in a car, I hit a pothole. A lot of people are like, oh crap, why me? Why me? Why me? But pronoia, that thought is, oh, this is happening because it's saving me from a car accident I would have had down the road. So that's what pronoia is. And when Bryce taught me that, I was like, oh my gosh, I love that.
It takes a lot of pressure off of things though, right? It kind of just relieves you to not stress and worry over little things. I just got back from a 2-week trip to Hawaii, and I was camping, hiking, didn't have my phone on. My screen time was 32 minutes a day.
That's awesome.
And I was just out there with my girlfriend, and then I get back.
What island?
We went to Big Island and Kauai.
Kauai. Thank God. I'm so happy you said Kauai. So many people go to Oahu, and no knock to Oahu. I love Oahu. Kauai is different. Kauai is the best.
It's way different. And it's the first time that I did a vacation where I'm actually exploring. I always joke around and say, when I was a kid, we'd go to Clearwater Beach, Florida. We went 2 times, and it was resort, pool, and just watching our friends and family drink on the beach. We didn't do anything.
I do love Clearwater, but 100%. That's you're talking my language now. So many people, I always say, I wish people could act in real life how they act when they're traveling, because when you travel, you are so willing to be in an elevator with a stranger and say, hey, where are you from? Right. Because you're in the same hotel. Yeah. You're willing to, you just want to meet. Right. It's so easy to do that. When something goes wrong, it's well, it's part of traveling, and you're almost more willing for stuff to go south. Right. But then when you get back home, you're not going to be in the elevator at your own office and say, hey, where you from? You know what I mean? You don't give a crap. So it's there's so many things that you could take from traveling that I think it shows who you really are a little bit, because it's listen, you have this in you. You might as well be that person everywhere. I don't know. I like who I am when I travel, so I try to replicate that everywhere.
And you're a worldly man, right? You've been to how many countries?
Probably close to like 35 or 40. I'd have to go through my list. Just got back from Egypt with Bryce and another buddy of mine, Anthony DiCarlo, who wrestled Ohio State. So that was pretty cool.
Tell me about the pyramids, man. I'm big into the conspiracy theory that they're whaled with everything, that there's water ruins on them, that Dr. Shock, all of that shit, man. So
I love that stuff too. They obviously gave us, like, the tour guys gave us like the historical, right, side of like how they were built and all that stuff. It was very cool. So me, Bryce and Anthony.
You're talking about Bryce Meredith for the
Bryce
listeners?
Meredith. Yep. Bryce Meredith. Me, Bryce Meredith, and my friend Anthony DiCarlo, who started, I think, for maybe a season at Ohio State, from Ohio originally. We actually started a brand together, kind of like on like how to, not how to live life. I would never tell people how to live life, how we like to live life. That's, kind of what it is. And it's we trademarked the term "No Tomorrow." Okay. So what it kind of means is, what makes you feel the most present? Like, what are you doing? For some people, is it 5 p.m. yet? Is it time to go home? And they're almost like the movie Click Remote, like trying to fast forward through the mundane parts of their day. Oh, is it Friday yet? Oh my God, am I 65 years old yet? Is it retirement yet? They just don't like, a lot of their weeks, their days, their months, whatever it is, right? They don't enjoy them, and totally understandable. I want people to suffer and grind and work hard. And maybe you're not supposed to like those, but at least do it towards something you enjoy, right? Like for me, I love wrestling, and I'm going to suffer via cutting weight, via, losing, right? Hard workouts, kill yourself workouts. I'm going to suffer for those because I like wrestling in the end. And when I wrestle, it makes me feel very present, right? When I skydive, it makes me feel very present. When I travel, it makes me feel very present. I'm not saying, oh my gosh, is it tomorrow yet? Right. And No Tomorrow is kind of like a reminder for us to grasp, that moment, live in the moment, and make the most of it. Right. It doesn't mean be reckless. It doesn't mean don't plan. It just means, do what you can right now. You don't have to be thinking, oh, is it tomorrow yet? Let me go to bed early so I can wake up and it's tomorrow already. You don't got to be stressing like that. So our whole point to go to Egypt was actually to like gather content for that. Mm-hmm. Right. And we had a skydive set up over the pyramids. There was an event going on one day a year. They let you do it. Right now, the day we got there, the Israel conflict going on, we were going to jump out of a military plane over the pyramids because of the stuff going on, like, 100 miles away. It got canceled. So it stunk, right? But that's part of No Tomorrow. That's part of the pothole stuff. Like, you just got to go with it. And you know what? We made the most of it. We got to see so many like historical stuff, which is actually something I don't get to do on a lot of trips. Most of the time I'll fly in somewhere and I'll have like an end goal in mind. Like, hey, I have to reach this mountain. I have to reach this. I have to reach this. So I don't get to do I call them the Statue of Liberties. I don't get to do the Statue of Liberties in each country. Yeah. And I got to do that, which was awesome. You know what I mean? Which is cool. So I like that part of it.
Dude, but you got all the way over there, and the day before or something like that, they canceled. That's crazy.
They revoked. Yeah, they took the permit away.
How big are they in real life, the pyramids?
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. It's like I like. It was so cool because you learn about this in school, and you're just sitting there. You're like, this is what I saw. Like when I was in 5th grade. This is crazy.
Right.
There was only one other time I really felt like that. 1.5 other times. The Coliseum, I was like, oh my gosh, right? Yeah. I take that back. The oh my gosh moments have happened 1,000 times. Scenic views, but like I'm talking structures, like man-made structures. The Coliseum, the pyramids, and then my other half time was when I went to Pompeii, where the volcano happened, and you saw like the people like in their last moments, right? Like they're going like this.
You can still see it.
They're in an ash like cast. That was gnarly too. I was like, what the heck?
Heavy.
Yeah, that was a bad day for them probably.
Yeah, but to your point though, I'd heard about that. I didn't know you could still see everything. Like see some remains up there.
It's like a whole city in ruin because Mount Vesuvius is right there. It's actually pretty cool. I implore like anybody to like just go travel the world. I think you learn so much. I would never, I'm not going to be that like woke person that's like, dude, I learned more traveling than I ever did in school. Like, no, I get it. School is important, whatever, but you do learn a lot about like social interactions, having a grocery shop in a foreign country, having to figure out a transit system, like that stuff's important. And there's a lot of people that will save up $1,000, maybe even less. It doesn't take that much to travel. I know people think it does. They'll save up, $700-800. They'll go all the way to Cancun. Cancun's great. I love it. But like you said, they'll sit in a resort the whole time. Now, I like resorts. Don't think like I'm not anti-resort, but when every single person there speaks English, all the food is Americanized, right? You're not getting the full culture experience that you can. You might as well go to Vegas. You might as well you might as well not spend that much money to do that. You know what I mean? So if you're going to be, one of my rules, I have like a list of rules when I travel. Like one of my rules is like, if I'm going to do all this, do something I can only do here. Like, I mean, not every day, but do something I can only do in Egypt. Do something I can only do in Cancun. You know what I mean? And a few other days, yeah, go to the pool, go to the resort. That's fine. But try and harness that little part of it too.
I also love how you're not the international traveler who can't say a good thing about the countryside of the U.S. I've heard you like brag about all the cool shit you can see in the U.S., man. Like
that's it makes me so mad. Like, like I just need to be out of America. Like America's sick. Are you crazy? We have so many national parks and we have deserts, mountains, the coastline, from the Pacific Northwest and Oregon to like the Death Valley. It's only like a 15-hour span, but they're completely different, like, environments. And it's unbelievable, right? So explore the United States as much as you can. It's awesome. I love it here.
You have to tell the story about when you wrestled in Cuba and you literally could not find a check scale. And so speaking of international travel, this is a little bit different because you were in business mode down there.
I don't even remember telling this story. I told it on a
This
podcast?
is an old podcast. I've been in the rabbit hole, dude. This is an old one. This was with our man Sam Herring back in 2019, and you were telling about like these, don't get, trying to give some advice. Don't get into any like pre-match habits or quirks because when you wrestle,
I stole that from Travell. I steal everything from Travell, Jay Jaggers, Tom. I steal all my good stuff from them.
Dude,
but
you were around some guys. But yeah, so what's this? How did you literally not be able to get access to a check scale?
So, I don't know if it's, I've only been in a few international tournaments. That was the only one I actually fortunately got to travel overseas for. But in Cuba, Reese and them have always told me they'll try and like screw some of the wrestlers over a little bit by just making stuff hard, right? Making it hard on them, and not giving them access to the scale beforehand, this and that, just, playing chess, you know what I mean? And I get there and I was a little worried. We didn't really have a Team USA scale. So I was thinking, okay, I'll check at the wrestling room. So we go to the wrestling room, but that scale was like all up and down, it wasn't really trustworthy. So I didn't know how that was going to compare to the actual weigh-in scale in a couple days. So when I went to the weigh-in scale in a couple days, I had not checked my weight in like a day and a half or 2 days, or I forget what it was, but something crazy, right? And I could kind of tell, like, a lot of wrestlers like, no, hey, I'm close. And I had already started relatively close. Like I was within like 6 pounds. So I knew my pre-day workout is, I know exactly what I'll lose. Once I start sweating, I lose about a pound every 15 minutes. So I knew exactly what I would lose, right? Now that's if I have, my exact sweats. Everything's like a science, right? So I remember getting there and I was like an hour or so early, and I was like, oh, perfect. I'll check, then I'll go work out. So we get there. I hadn't checked my weight in a couple of days, and I go to weigh in and they're like, nope, nobody's allowed in here. And I'm like, what do you mean nobody's allowed in here? And he starts speaking Spanish. The dude probably spoke English, but he was just, he's pretending right now.
Yeah.
He's like, who doesn't speak English at this point? He's like, and I'm like, dude, I need to check my weight. And I think I was with Ty Walls and maybe Brewer, or I forget who I was with. Hunter was there, and we're all looking like, what are we going to do? And I remember it was like 100 degrees outside. I just put on my clothes. I started running just to make sure. And I was running and I was sweating. An hour went by. I go to check and I was like 61 kilos on the dot. It was crazy. Dang. Yeah.
And when you say wrestling room, what are we talking down there for facilities?
It was like outdoor. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but obviously didn't have the funds that, a
Right.
lot of the American rooms have. Right. And, it was rough. There was a million people in there. All the windows were like shattered. Like there were some shattered windows. So like it was open, but there was still windows. I don't know how to explain that without it sounding crazy, but there was windows that were just like taken out, and it was just gnarly looking. But you almost like felt like you were Rocky going back to the old gym instead of going to like the new. You know what I mean? It was cool. It was fun.
It's amazing that they're so dominant though in wrestling for the size they are. Like if you go per capita, it's ridiculous how good Cuba is.
Well, this one guy came to Ohio State. He was on the Cuban team. Now this is like when I was a freshman, so I didn't know too much about the senior level yet. So I wish I could tell you his name. He was a lightweight freestyler, but he wasn't competing at the time. He was probably 10 years past. And I remember he comes in and he goes, "Are you guys kidding me?" And we were like, "What?" And he's like, you guys have all this stuff and you're not Olympic champs. We have nothing." And he said the difference, and he said it in a cool accent, so it sounded way more like badass, right? He's like, the difference between us is if you lose, you go home, you sleep good. If I lose, right, I don't feed my family. And you know what I mean? That whole like mindset, right? Like the way he said it, it was like, holy cow. It's funny. Like someone could say something really generic in an English accent, not English, in an American accent. And it's whatever. Like it could be like, "Hey bro, you got to let it go." Right. And it's like, dude, I've heard "let it go" 1,000 times. But if I say that stuff in a Cuban accent, it's like profound. It's like, "Bro, let it go." I don't even know what accent that is. Right? I don't even know what accent
that was like a Russian Cuban, but it came through.
If you say it in a Russian Cuban accent, bro, it's like mind blowing, right?
Dude, the crazy part is he was probably talking about the old Ohio State facilities too, not the new one.
Steelwood.
Right?
That we were at Steelwood when he did that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, and that wasn't good enough for these new age recruits. So you got to build this new incredible facility. But yeah, it's crazy to see that. I'm working on a documentary now, and one of the subjects in it is from Russia. And so I'm getting really into his background, his nuts and bolts. And it's like, it just, after I read about it for like 3 hours, I just feel tougher walking around my apartment. I don't know. 100%. It's the weirdest thing. Like they're just so nails tough over there.
It just gives you so much perspective, and it's awesome. And that's something like I wish we as wrestlers can do, even outside of our own sport. I feel like we have such a hard time because we don't get the credit we feel we deserve, right? Like, we don't get the glory that the football and the basketball and all these popular sports get. So we feel the need to defend so fast. Like, no, we're the toughest sport. No, we're the toughest sport. And while biasedly, I do agree, like, we have such a tough sport. I do hope wrestlers one day can have respect as a whole for how hard other people work. Because people work hard everywhere, all over the world. They really do. I don't care who you are. If you're a professional athlete somewhere, you're probably an ass kicker. It's pretty crazy.
And even that, like the people I've had on here who went on to be like doctors, like one of them, Eric Tannenbaum, Illinois guy, went to Michigan, went on to med school as a legit doctor, knee surgeon. He's like, when I got to med school, there's a lot of people who easily outworked me and they never wrestled a day in their life.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, that quote isn't true that Gable said, and
that's funny.
I kind of side with that most of the time,
I agree. Like I actually, not to go deep right away. I lost my mom when I was 16. Right.
Right.
And I 100% think wrestling does give you tools, right, to help. Right. And there's a million things like, obviously you have a whole podcast dedicated how wrestling has changed my life. Right. And I cherry pick from those tools. But when it comes down to what was harder, right, a hard practice, a hard loss versus obviously losing somebody like that every day of the week, it's always going to be something like, but again, the tools that you're given are obviously, undeniable in wrestling. There's so many things I've learned just from the sport, just from working hard and stuff like that. There's a kid actually at Harvard who said this one day. It was pretty cool that he said this. He brought that Gable quote up, and then he said, there's a lot of people who fought and died for this country that never wrestled. There's a lot of firefighters that never wrestled. There's a lot of great mothers and fathers that never wrestled. So while wrestling is great and it gives you tools, It's not the end all be all, this is what's going to make me the best, and that's a great thing to think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It is at the end of the day, it is a sport, as much as we love it, as much as I've, shaped my life around it. It is a sport, and I respect anybody who works hard outside of wrestling as well.
Absolutely. And it's something where that study I think you're referring to in ESPN, it was like swimming was number one, and there's no joke.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, it's like swimming is super hard, but
right.
It'd be different if like you were swimming against someone,
right?
Another person,
and it angered me too at first.
Yeah,
right? I was like, no, it's not. Wrestling's, and then I was like, why do I care? Like, like I know it's so who cares? It's so funny.
Yeah, it really is, and there's a lot of chips on the shoulders, guys, in the sport. The one thing I love about you is how you take all these old adages. I call them the bad advice adages, and you break them down publicly. One of which was, if you win, you win. If you lose, you learn. And you're like, what if you wrestled someone who sucks and you didn't do, you weren't that much better?
Yeah.
So you didn't improve. So go ahead.
Again, that's something I steal from Travell. I can't take credit. Like
he's the man.
He is. He's a wizard. I shouldn't say I don't. I steal things a lot more than I manifest things. I just happen to paraphrase them pretty well. My dad's a speaker. So I fortunately have, I think, I don't know if I'm, boasting myself, but I do feel like I can story tell well. And so I steal from all these coaches that I'm around, I like what he said. I like what he said. Now I'm going to say it, not like a robot. You know what I mean? So.
Well, along that track, one of my things I was most looking forward to asking you, you do camps all over the country, thousands of kids, a bunch of states, not 53 states, but 47 states.
Oh, because of the video. That's funny.
Let me ask you this. What's some of the worst advice you're constantly hearing out there amongst the youth?
Okay. So the one you just said, you the win, you learned, right? I in my opinion, you win, you get better, you lose, get better. Right. I could win a match, and do 0 moves, 2-1, ride out, whatever. And I didn't learn anything. Or I could risk 16 times, get in on a backside single and get stuffed by a wizard, right? And the wizard keeps me from finishing a shot. But because it happened X amount of times in a match, hey, guess what? Now I have a little bit of foundation. Hey, this is where I got to get better. Now, the way I'm saying it, it sounds like, hey, just go out and just throw stuff at the wall. But that's not what I mean. There is still strategy. There is still, hey, I'm not going to shoot this 30 seconds because I don't, I mean? Like, I get it. There's still that. But at the end of the day, you do want to view wrestling in that way. Another thing that I always hear, dads, if you're listening to this, don't come up to me at a wrestling camp and say, hey, should you be eating that? Because I'll look back at you and say, should you be eating that? Okay. Because I don't care. All right. Like, listen, don't say that to me. That's something I always get told. I'll teach something. This happens a lot too. I'll teach something and, coach comes to me, hey, I'm really happy you showed this. And I'll be like, why? And he's like, because I showed this exact same thing last week. And I'm like, why are you having me here, bro? Like, I don't even know why I'm here. Like,
how about do you ever get this one? A coach comes up to you and is like, I really want you to work my guys over today. Give them a good, give them a good beat down today. Yeah.
What the heck? Like, so what I do, it's funny when I do clinics now, the number one thing I want to happen is kids that have fun and learn some moves, right? Like, obviously, like that's another, but that's almost like the last thing I can worry about on the list. So like, I want them to learn moves. But what comes before that focus wise is, holding their attention. Are they having fun? Are the dad? Sometimes I teach not for the kids. I'll say things for the dad because like, I'll pretend like I'm saying it to the kid and I'll see this dad like yelling at this kid the whole practice. So I'll give like a little speech. I'll be like talking to the, hey guys, listen to that. And then I'll like kind of like slide in there something about how like, don't listen to the outside people, you know what I mean? Because his dad is being like a freaking jerk. And it's funny, like I have to do that so often. So kind of part of my schedule now is I'll do a 2-hour clinic break, 2-hour clinic. I'm sorry, 2-hour technique break, 2-hour technique. And then like the last hour, I'll tell them, hey, listen, I'll do 2 technique sessions. And the last hour, I'll do like a power hour where we'll just work them really hard. So now they're like getting oh, okay, I get the hard work part of it out of the way, and I can do my whole, hey, here's the moves I want you to focus on part of the way. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it pleases both. So that's what I try to get to now.
And so when you go on these trips, you're going with the great Dylan Palacia, and I just say
Come
that
on.
because he's hysterical. And you guys are like just living on the road. Is that how are you tenting, camping? Like, how does it work?
We're literally we don't know. We like it's totally like the no tomorrow thing that I told you about. It's totally it's just no, like we have no idea what's happening. It's we'll start driving to a clinic. Let's say we get one in Iowa, right? We'll tweet, hey, you know, we're passing through Iowa. Anybody want to hit us up? True story. We were in Iowa. Some club in Arkansas says, hey, you want to come down south? Another club in Texas, hey, you want to come down south? So we piggyback those. We'll go to Arkansas Saturday, Texas Sunday, right? And we just boom, 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 right? Straight in line. So we do kind of map it out somewhat strategically, but the stuff that happens is just total nonsense. Like the way we met Bryce Meredith, we were doing a clinic in Colorado and we screwed up our mapping. We had to go from like Colorado to like Alabama or like something like insane, right? And we're like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And we're driving and our car broke down. It was like we thought it was the battery, but it was like the alternator or something like that. So at the time we were like, oh, we need to jump. We don't know what to do. Do we know anybody in Colorado? And at the time we're like, dude, I don't know who the heck to call. Bryce was in Denver. We saw on his Instagram. So we hit him up like, yo, we're in Colorado Springs right now. Can you come like jump our car? And he comes down, never hung with him before in our entire lives. He jumps our car. We ended up getting the alternator thing figured out later on. Long story short, though, after he jumps our car, we're like, well, we have a little bit of time to kill. You want to go cliff jump? And the three of us went and go cliff jump, like right after that, with Oliver Stone from Flow Wrestling, actually. It was pretty funny.
Dude, that's the kind of stuff that probably makes the trips just its whole journey in its own. What's the longest you've gone without coming back home during the summer, like for these camps?
Well, I have a lot of camps that hit me up in Ohio. Okay. So that's nice. But in a day, days in a row, I've done every day the month of June before. So all 30 days. Every day of the month of June. And then I went to, after I did every day of the month of June, I wanted like 2 weeks off. So I flew to the Philippines for 2 weeks. And then I came back and I did like, I think there was like 13 days, 14 days left of July. And I did, 10 of those 14. So it was like, just hammered them out. You know what I mean? So I like it. It's fun. And everybody always says like, oh, when you, get closer to 30, this and that, you won't want to do that anymore. I want to keep doing it. It's so fun for me. I love it.
I love that you're just so passionate about it and that you're using social media to like really, fill up your summers,
Try to definitely. I'm fortunate that Jay Weiss at Harvard, appreciates it, that I like doing camps, but I also think that he knows how much, it helps Harvard's, brand, just going across the different clubs, interacting with kids, so many kids I had a kid the other day come to camp wearing a Harvard wrestling t-shirt because I was coming. And, in the past, it's happened at Ohio State a bunch when I go, but the fact that it was Harvard now, it was pretty cool. It's like, oh, this kid really follows what I'm doing. He knows I'm at Harvard. And that was fun for me. That was cool.
So have you been able to coach there during a non-COVID year?
Yeah. My first year was pre-COVID. Where was NCAA at? Oh no, wait. Now that you said that,
you had the full year, but the Nationals got canceled, right?
We had the full year, no NCAAs. Why? I can't believe I just blanked. So full year, all the way through EIWAs, no Nationals. And then Ivy League couldn't wrestle last year. So I haven't had a national tournament yet at Harvard, but I've had a regular season.
Dude, is someone going to talk some sense into those maniacs at the Ivy League to get the sports programs back going again?
Come on. It's crazy.
Dude, are you hearing anything for this year?
So no, I'm out the loop on that. I'd be the last person they would tell, not the coaches, but
yeah,
like the AD.
Yeah.
I hope. I really hope.
Man, that's gotta be
we gotta stop guys from transferring to Penn State. It's
for real. Like, yeah, Cole going to Stanford. It's just crazy, man. So I gotta ask you about some of your days in Columbus, man, because you were part of the legendary 2015 team. You had some iconic teammates.
Okay, so those days in Columbus. Okay.
Those days.
Wrestling days.
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
That was the other legendary days for another time.
Yeah.
Bro, Tell me about Logan Stieber's work ethic as a college wrestler. What was he just on another level?
Yeah. So the thing about Logan is it's not, obviously work ethic's through the roof, but that's not the part I want to compliment. It was more consistency, right? Which I guess, is same umbrella as work ethic. His consistency, no matter what, I was going to be there no matter what every day I showed up, right? And obviously showing up is always not enough. It's what you do when you show up. But let's say we had a weekend off and it was, the middle of spring or summer, and we were allowed to go out. We were allowed to, go do our own thing, go hang with buddies and whatnot, shenanigans, Saturday night stuff, college kids, right? No matter what, if he went to bed early, he would show up at 9 a.m. on the bike, working out the next day. If he stayed up all night, he would show up 9 a.m. on the bike, working out. It was just consistent, right? So he knew no matter what he chose to do, right, in his own leisure time, it was never going to affect his purpose that he was there, right? That never changed. It was never like, oh, you know what? I'll make that workout. I'll make that workout up later. Like that was never a thought. You know what I mean? And that was a big part of I think why he was so great,
And for that long to do it, it's like 5 years, and really your whole life of doing that.
He was the best since he was at Tulsa, like forever, forever.
I mean, 4 high school state titles, 4 NCAA titles. And like you said, just wrecking kids a year. I mean, I don't know a ton about the Ohio circuit. I'm an Illinois guy, but he must have just been legendary on like the Ohio middle school circuits.
Yeah, he was. So, he was like, were you obviously like Spencer Lee's, what's the word I'm looking for? Spencer Lee's like presence as like a high schooler, right? Like his, oh my gosh, that's Spencer Lee. Like everybody kind of like talked about him when he was so young.
Right.
That's how Logan was. But obviously like social media wasn't around yet. All this stuff that kind of created these hypes about people wasn't around yet. And he had that amongst our community in Ohio as like an 8th grader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy,
And you guys all went there together. I mean, his brother, I think, was the same class as you. And so all these Ohio guys are going to Ohio State. What about Snyder? How would you compare and contrast his approach to Stieber's?
So
I guess let me ask, were you there with him?
Yeah, for 2 or 3 years, plus an RTC year. So Logan was, this is a compliment, what I'm about to say about Logan. He was, I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm digging at him, but like, he was like a jerk about how he would go about it. Like he knew who he wanted to hang with. He knew who he didn't. Right. Mm-hmm. And he didn't let anything interfere. Not that Kyle does. It's just like the way Kyle would go about stuff is Kyle his work ethic was through the roof, but he was more on his own a lot. So while Logan almost was like, hey, you either need to keep up with me or you're going to fall behind, Kyle was just doing his own thing just because, he's an upper weight. I wasn't around him as much. A lot of times he was training only freestyle. So he was like separated from the, the folk style guys. So I didn't get to see a lot of that during practice. You know what I mean? But what I saw from Kyle that I really liked was every day at Ohio State, we would have like after like practice, like meetings, even if it wasn't like a team meeting, like mandatory, we would all just kind of like hang out and chop it up a little bit. And the stuff he would say and break down about wrestling, that was always like awesome. There's so many like isms that I take from him that I'll never forget that he's taught us, Do
you have any you can remember? Or just like the way he breaks down technique?
Dude, I got a million. Like,
hit us with a couple.
I got a million. Something that they talked about one time. So I was pretty bummed out because I had gotten, beat by a kid that, usually I get the better of at practice that day. And I remember talking to him and Travell about it, and I was like pissed off. And we've all heard a phrase in the past, like, hey, don't take practice home with you, right? Like, hey, don't take practice home with you. And that's very easy. It's very easy to hear, like, oh yeah, whatever, like leave it here, right?
Yeah.
But when you break it down, kind of what they would say is, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. I'm going to use like a real life analogy. If gosh, I'm trying to think of a good analogy off the top of my head. I'm sorry. whatever. If I beat a kid, again, it kind of goes back to the quote we just talked about. If I beat a kid 2-1 at practice in a 4-minute go, and I took him down in the first 20 seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for the next minute, 3 minutes and whatever seconds, I did nothing. I zero risk, hung on, didn't want to open up because I just cared about the winning. It's very easy for me to take practice home with me and say, I'm the best. I beat him today. I got the win. I won. Even though it was only 2-1, he didn't take me down, whatever, right? Now, the win doesn't actually go home with you. What actually goes home with you is all the choices you made during the process of that match. Did I choose to risk? No. Okay, so guess what? Lack of risk taking, that'll probably go home with you. That'll become a part of who you are. That'll become a part of your identity. And in your real life, you're not going to be a risk taker in other areas of life. You're not going to ask that chick out at the bar, right? You're not going to ask her. You're not a risk taker. You know what I mean? That's just part of it. Now, if I shot 12 times in that 4-minute go, and, maybe I win, maybe I lose, maybe he spins on me, 6 of the times, whatever. If that happens, the win or the loss doesn't go home with you. It's very easy for me to be bummed out and pissed off and take it home with me. But what actually goes home with me is, hey, listen, I can put it on the line. You know what I mean? I didn't really care about the score. I was willing to just see what happens. I was willing to just have that troubleshooting, risk-taking gene in me. You know what I mean? Other examples of that is, if I chose to stay in comfort and close up versus chose to, really open up and exhaust myself, that stuff goes home with you. You know what I mean? So that stuff really impacted how I would look at practice when they would say stuff like that. And when I would start to have the, I need to win at practice mentality, especially in RTC. I learned so much more in the RTC than I did in college. I wish I could go back.
Really? Like how do you mean? Like technique wise or just like philosophy?
No, philosophy stuff. You know what I mean? Technique stuff, you're always, getting better technique, but just the way you approach things, it always changes, and that's one of them that really impacted me, how I looked at practice, almost like, I'm going to try and give up 199 points in order to score 200 points. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like, hey, if I do A plus B, I'll win. You know what I mean? Like, listen, sometimes B goes wrong and you got to figure it out, So that was important stuff, as you progress through RTC, I learned that kind of stuff.
And how much worse is it if you're a middle schooler and your dad's watching you, yelling at you if you get a takedown of practice? That's where it gets bad,
Yeah. I've seen the best college wrestling coaches in the world sit down at practice at their son's middle school practice and not say a word. And I've seen these dads who've never wrestled a day in their life be in their kid's face, right? At the end of the day, let your coaches coach. You know what I mean? Let someone coach your kid. Now, it doesn't mean you can't be a dad. It doesn't mean you can't, give advice here and there or this and that. But you got to, if you're going to take them to a club, let the coach. Now, he could be a knucklehead. He could be an idiot. I don't know who, I'm not going to vouch for every single coach. But at the end of the day, Tom Ryan has a great quote. He always says, the best plan in the world with no trust is never as good as a mediocre plan with all the trust in the world, right? Like, if you have trust, it's always going to be a better plan than a great plan with no trust,
Mm-hmm.
So trust your coach,
Dude, speaking of great college coaches, you just mentioned him, Tom Ryan. Just a legend and one of the great speakers of wrestling coaches. I always loved John Smith growing up because he was the best interview ever. He was just a great talker. Same with Tom Ryan.
Everything Tom says though is off the top. That's the best part. He doesn't sit there and hey, I'm gonna say this and this and that. He doesn't do that. He'll come in there. So, and then he says so a lot before he starts a speech. So that's right. He goes, so, and then he'll just like go for 10 minutes. And it's like, where did this come from? You're like, what the heck? And he doesn't rehearse it. It's totally off the top. And the whole reason he's so good at that is because it's authentic passion. It's authentic passion. You know what I mean? That's why he sounds so fired up, because it's not fake. He actually is fired up. You can't have, makeshift passion, and he totally has it.
What's it like when Tom Ryan shows up in the living room as a high schooler?
It's pretty cool. That was cool. I actually verbaled pretty early. I was like sophomore, maybe sophomore or junior. I forget. Sophomore, junior high school. So he wasn't able to have that visit yet because I wasn't old enough.
Yeah.
But eventually when I had that, I went and took my official visit, did all that stuff. And we kind of had a relationship. Families had a relationship prior as well. So like we knew them pretty well. I've been friends with Jake forever. So
dude, I can't say enough about the guy. What's I'm just trying to think of any good nuggets or stories you have from Tom Ryan that you take with you. I know the quote he said about like following your passion, not your money. That's like you to a T. Like I think about that. I mean, look what's happened to you. But what other like just Tom Ryanisms have you taken with you through your life?
I got a lot. Oh man, off the top of my head. What? Oh, there's so many bad ones, like but bad ones go through my head right now. Oh my gosh. Obviously, like his book. Have you seen his book?
Yeah.
So that chosen suffering thing, that's like a real thing for him. He has said that forever. And, he said things like, you're going to suffer whatever you do. You might as well suffer for something, you enjoy. And there's kind of two parts of wrestling. You know what I mean? There's preparation and there's competition. And, I could have fun at one of them, and I can choose to suffer and to grind at one of them. If I choose to have fun when I prepare, and by fun, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean you can't have fun, but it means like you're in comfort a lot, right? So if I choose to have fun when I prepare, I'm probably going to suffer when I compete because I'm probably not going to wrestle that good. And then on the flip side of that, if I choose to suffer when I prepare, I'll probably have a lot more fun when I compete. Mm-hmm. And it's not because I'm going to win every time. If there's a coach out there that says, hey, I guarantee you'll win, he's a liar, right? That's just unfortunately the sad truth. We've seen people do everything right and still lose, unfortunately. However, what people can promise you is you will probably wrestle to the best version that you can, right? To the best of your abilities. And that's fun, right? When I'm doing like the best that I can, that is a lot of fun. Obviously losing is never fun, but when I can put stuff out there and do cool moves and do good wrestling, that's going to be fun. And that's a byproduct of working really hard, So that's something that he talks about. That chosen suffering, that's a real thing. And there's so many things that I've took from him and brought into everywhere that I go. Every university I've been a part of, Kent, Rutgers, Harvard, I've stolen stuff that he's told me.
Dude, the guys you were learning from there, like Tervel, Tom Ryan. I don't know if like Lou Roselli was there, but man, just think of like
Lou was my coach. Yeah, he was like the lightweight coach when I was there.
Gotcha. I don't know a ton about him. I've never spoken with him, but you talk about him to the guys he's coached. It's like an iconic person. He's like mythical.
He's the best.
Dude,
he's the best.
The last thing I wanted to ask you about, and we're kind of speed dating here because there's so much shit I could just yuck it with.
Yeah. I was ready to talk, man. We could,
dude. The shirt you had that Zeb Miller, bro. Oh my God. I almost skipped over this video. Man. I'm so glad I didn't because one, I didn't even know you had a rivalry with Corey Clark. So now I've gone down that rabbit hole. And watched
there's a lot about that I have never told about that I've never told on a podcast, but we'll save that for another time too.
Okay, we'll save it for another. If you want to share it, hey, we're all ears for that one. But just tell people what's on the shirt.
All right. So obviously, like everybody has a senior level, hey, I'm doing camps and I'm still competing t-shirt, right? Nobody's making money at these RTCs. I shouldn't say that. I'm very thankful for the RTCs, but nobody's making like a lot of money. So it's like, hey, another way for me to have some income. I'll just hustle a few t-shirts, right? So I'm thinking like, you know what? I do a lot of camps. I should have a t-shirt too. Why not? Like if anybody wants to come to the US Open and watch, maybe they can wear it. They can buy it at the camps. So I thought, what could make mine like a little different than just like, I don't know who's a random wrestler, Meredith, 65 kilos. And that's usually all it says, like the name and then just the thing. And I use Bryce as an example because he doesn't do that. He's pretty, he's very abstract with his stuff, right? So most shirts though, they say something very like basic like that. Like, you really have to be a fan of the individual to like it. And I was thinking like, dude, I didn't win the nationals. I was a decent name at Ohio State, but for the most part, like I need people for them to be my fan. They need to like me. They need to like my personality and whatnot, because I don't have the NCAA medal, the championship. I don't have that accolade yet, right? Like I wanted to, obviously, US Open wise, but long story short, I said, how can I put my personality on a shirt? Well, I skydive and I wrestle. Those are my two things. That's what people know me for. So I had a little cartoon skydiving wrestler. It was me in a singlet with a big parachute over top. So that was the start. And I got that first on a shirt, and I was like, I really like that. But I wanted like it almost felt plain or like naked. I wanted more. So I hit up Twitter, and I was like, hey, I need help with like Photoshop. Anybody know anything? And ironically, Mason Manville, of all people, I've like never talked to him in my life, tweeted back at me, hey, have you ever tried the app Fiverr? So I look up what Fiverr is. It's like, I'm sure you've maybe seen it before. It's like, yeah, it's awesome. It's like Airbnb or for graphic design, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you just look at, put out what you want. And a bunch of people from, all over the world, India, Pakistan. I think I had a person from Pakistan do my last one. They just hit you up. Hey, I'll do it for $5. And it's like, holy cow. Awesome.
Right.
So I needed a skyline because I wanted my wrestler, my skydiver, to be landing in a city. And I thought, if I make a skyline of every like notable name, All-American, national champ I've ever beat, it would be pretty funny, especially if they were all puns. For example, I pinned Cody Brewer, right? So at the bottom of the shirt, there's a little bridge called Brewer Bridge because he couldn't bridge off his back, right? Like,
what's the Corey Clark one?
What was Corey's? I have a picture of it somewhere. Oh,
it was something with like a gas company.
Because Clark Gas Co. That's right. Good memory. That was good. So I beat him twice. I beat him at the US Open, and I also beat him at the duel at Ohio State when I was in college. And I took him down like 3 times in the first period, but I got like dumb tired, right? Like really tired. And when I was wrestling, he started like really come back. It was like the 3rd period, and he got a takedown. He like cut me. He started like doing the whole Iowa thing. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, dude, I cannot get Iowa right now. Like, there's no way. Like, no, I'm at Ohio State. Like, this cannot happen. And everybody on the Iowa bench was screaming like, he's stalling. And I was stalling my butt off, right? I was so tired. I was gassed. So the whistle blows, end of the match. It was still 3 takedowns to 1. So I didn't feel that bad for stalling, but it was like 3 takedowns to 1. And I we were like in like a spaghetti scramble, and I kind of push him off me. And as I get up, Tom Brands is like on the mat in the middle of the circle in my face. And he's like this. And he's like, and he goes, and I heard him say something like, you were gassed. He was gassed or something like that. And he's like talking to Corey, and he like backs up, and I like shaking my hand, and I'm like fired up now. I'm like, dude, what? Like, what's up? And I get my hand raised. And then I was like, dude, I was gassed. So I'm just going to put that on the shirt. Like Clark Gas Company gassed me out. Whatever. I still won.
The Tom Brands face is fantastic, dude.
Yeah, it was funny. There was that. There was some good ones. There was Earl Hall. He's like my homie, so I feel bad saying this, but his last name's Hall. So it was like Earl Town Hall. I just kind of try to make it funny.
What was the bank one?
I was just about to say DiCamillo. So George is like also a good buddy of mine. We've known each other. We went to the same club when we were 5 years old. Crazy, right?
Dang.
Yeah. So I wrestled George 3 times in college. And every single time I should not have won. Like there's no, like, I don't know how this happened. Right. So the first time actually I beat him like just regular. I took him down, wrote him out. It was like 5-2. Right. The second time was at Vegas. And this was crazy. He was winning 4-1 or something stupid. Yeah. 4-1 with a minute and like 2 or 3 seconds of riding time. So essentially 5-1.
Yeah.
The third period, Instead of choosing down, he chooses feet because he doesn't want to erase his riding time. He's like, yeah, I'll choose feet. He hasn't taken me down yet. Boom, let's go feet. So I'm like, oh crap, like I'm screwed. Like, obviously I'm not thinking this, but like now
Here comes the heat.
Yeah, I'm like, I gotta go. Like, holy cow. So I start peppering, like trying to get in, can't get in. At one point, I got a stalling call. I think it was like 4-2. With 10 seconds left, snap him down. I try to go behind, and I like completely have never hit this in my entire life. The little shuck by, like I say like ole, because you're kind of like ole on by. I never hit it, right? I shuck him by, and somehow with 2 seconds left on the clock, I get a takedown. Those 2 seconds, he erased the riding time, and now there's 59 seconds. It's 4-4. Instead of him having a riding point, we go into overtime. We go a minute, 30-30, another minute, another 30-30. Eventually, I wrote him out, I think, and I got escaped. So I kind of got lucky, right, with a little shock at the end. That wasn't even the bad one. The bad one was at a dual meet the following year. This was really bad. He took me down in the first period and rode me out the whole period. He had like an hour of riding time on me, right? So I'm down 2-0, essentially 3-0. I choose down in the second period. I'm sorry, he chooses down in the second period. I got a cheap tilt. Made it 2-2. As I tilt him, though, he gets out, he escapes and takes me down. It was like you learn it at 5 years old. Like as I cut, shoot. It was like one of those. So now it's 5-2. He has a riding point. So it's essentially 6-2, right? Long story short, third period comes around. I have to choose feet because I haven't gotten out on him yet. And I'm just like going as hard as I can. I'm down 6-2 plus 5-2 plus a riding
time.
Yeah. 6-2 right now. Right. I'm trying so hard to take him down, and I just like can't for like a minute and a half. Finally, with like 20 seconds left, I get on a high crotch and I finish. Now it's 6-4, and I go to cut him. This is where it gets funny. I go to cut him, and he like kind of grabs my hands, like he's not stalling, but he's like, why am I going to let you cut me? Like I had 20 seconds left. You know what I mean? So he's like holding onto my hands. Right. And out of instinct, I thought I was going to hit for stalling. So I dropped down to a high crotch to like return to the mat. As I drop down to a high crotch, I have this move that I hit on Brewer all the time, that kind of like back hook and roll him up. And for some reason I was like, well, I guess I'm going to try this. Right. Because I was trying to cut him. I was like, not trying to do this. So I fall into the crackdown, I roll him up, and I get a 4 count. 4 count is 4 points in college, right? So it was 6-2, takedown 6-4, 4 count, 8-6, and then time expired. And I look up and I see his dad, right? His dad's like looking at me like, are you kidding me? Because I know his dad like real well, right? So the name of the shirt, or the name of the building on the shirt, is DiCamillo Bank, because I robbed him. Because I should not have won, dude. That was not fair.
Dude, thank God you're out there in the wrestling world spreading this holiday cheer that you do,
Come
man.
on.
It's fantastic. I really appreciate.
Thank God that you're doing this kind of stuff. Listen, podcasts change the game, and I'm not saying this because you asked me to come on, because I do appreciate it, but I've seen your stuff like a lot. You are doing a very good job, and I appreciate anybody who could do this. I know I was kind of like not shading wrestling earlier, but like, saying like, hey, there's more to life than wrestling. Yeah. At the same time, wrestling is my life. At the end of the day, I love wrestling, and what you're doing for the sport is awesome. So thank you.
Thank you, man. It means a lot. It's only possible if people like you come on here. So again, appreciate it. Sam, thank you for hooking this up, my friend. I hope you're out there listening. Johnny, we'll be, I'm sure we'll have you on here soon, man.
Listen, anytime I'll come on and chop it up. You let me know.
If you're in Illinois, let me know, dude. We'll meet up and do this in person.
Well, where are you in Illinois, if you don't mind me asking?
Chicago.
So do you know the Hasseltons?
Mm-mm.
He's a couple times state champ down in Chenoa. I'll be there at the end of July, but I'm there for like 4 or 5 days. So I'll pop up to Chicago maybe or something and check it out the city.
Pop up. Yeah, I just bought a condo, dude. So we have an extra room. Come on over.
All right, cool. Sounds good.
Take care, man.